Summer's the time when you want to grill out and enjoy all the delicious flavors of food cooked over open fire. What do you do though when you don't live in a suburb with like a massive yard and a grill? What you do is you make these smoky broiled chicken thighs with miso BBQ sauce, and you have your summers forever changed. Here's how to make it. To achieve the smoky flavor that really defines a good cookout, we need to brine our chicken thighs in a salty, smoky liquid. Liquid smoke is a product that I think gets a really bad rep, but if used correctly, it literally tastes the same as food cooked over the grill. This one specifically is legitimately just smoke that has been condensed into a liquid and mixed with water. For our brine, add 1 liter of water to a large container, add 15 grams of liquid smoke, 15 grams of liquid aminos or soy sauce, 20 grams of salt, and 20 grams of sugar. Mix this together until the sugar and salt have fully dissolved, and we're ready to add 2 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thigh. Thighs are perfect for this because they're gonna stay juicy in the high temps of the oven. Make sure that they're evenly covered, and this can go in the fridge for at least 4 hours, but upwards to 12 if you wanna get that really, really smoky flavor. Now that that's brining, we've got time to make the most delicious miso barbecue sauce. This is gonna sound like a lot of ingredients for barbecue sauce, but just trust me. Start by grating a quarter of a white onion on a box grater. The fine texture of this just cooks a lot faster than minced onion, but you could mince it if you want that as well. Grate 2 cloves of garlic on a microplane and then gather up all the rest of the ingredients for the sauce. Once this little bit of prep's done, we're pretty much just throwing stuff in a pan. Do a saucepan over medium heat, add in a little cooking oil, and then plop in your grated onions. Let those begin to sweat until you start to see a little bit of color. Add in your garlic and cook that for another minute just until they're fragrant and soft. Now we're gonna add 50 mils of water just to deglaze and cool the pan off a little bit. Add in 75 grams of ketchup for the classic barbecue flavor and texture, 25 grams of soy sauce for salt and umami, 25 grams of sriracha for more umami and some spice, 15 grams of rice vinegar for tartness, and 10 grams of sugar for sweetness. And we're gonna bring this whole thing up to a simmer. Let this kind of bubble away for a few minutes until it's just thickened slightly. Now pour this into a blender with 50 grams of red miso and let this rip until smooth. I like to pour it back into the pan just so I can do one final adjustment on the texture. Usually I have to pour some water into my blender just to make sure I get every drop of the sauce out, so I need to reduce it again. Heat this on medium and taste it for final seasoning. It shouldn't need any more salt. The miso is salty, the soy sauce is salty. You just want to be aware of how it's tasting right now. It may need a little more sugar. It should be punchy, salty, sweet, rich, perfect for some chicken thighs. Store this in a container in the fridge for when we need it later. This is also just a great all-purpose barbecue sauce to have around that has a little bit of extra flavor compared to your standard barbecue sauces. Another key component of the completed dish is this corn relish that acts like a cool sauce in contrast with the smoky thighs. It's essentially corn tossed in remoulade, but it works better than you'd think. In a container, mix together mayo, minced shallot, grated garlic, and a diced pepperoncini. These bring a little bit of acidity and spice without being super overpowering. We also need ketchup, Dijon mustard, hot sauce, Worcestershire sauce, lemon juice, cayenne pepper, smoked paprika, sugar, pepper, and finely chopped parsley. You may be thinking to yourself, dang, that sounds like a really complicated burger sauce. And essentially that's exactly what it is. It's sweet, a little tangy, and is really gonna take this roasted corn to the next level. For the corn itself, heat a skillet over medium-high until nice and hot, and then add in a little cooking oil along with 150 grams of frozen sweet corn. You could use fresh corns from the cob if you want extra credit, but I always keep bags of corn in the freezer, and you're most likely not gonna notice the difference when it's covered in the sauce. Add in 1 de-seeded diced jalapeno and season this with salt. Toss the corn to evenly coat everything in the salt, and then just leave it on one side to char slightly. Once you see charring, you can toss it again, but this doesn't take long at all to cook, and that's why I love it for this use. Remove the corn from the pan and let it cool before adding it to the remoulade. Combine it all till totally coated and store it in the fridge. This is really easy to scale up to massive amounts depending on how much you need to make and how many people are coming over. So the chicken's brining, the sauces are finished, and now for the side. To me, nothing shouts a cookout like a good, crisp, cool coleslaw. The only other thing I would say would be like mac and cheese, but I already covered that with my baked mac and cheese recipe, so we've got that taken care of. This is the classic cabbage and carrot slaw just made really, really well. Take a half head of cabbage and finely slice it. You could do this with a knife, but this is an occasion that I find it really helpful to use a mandolin if you have one. Wash and finely shred 2 carrots and add that in with the cabbage. I also really like some super, super thin white onion, so every now and then you get a nice little contrasty bite of sharpness. Season this with salt and rice vinegar, and then use your hand hands to squeeze the salt and vinegar into the cabbage. This helps actually wilt the cabbage slightly and make sure that it's coated in that vinegar and salt. I don't love it when the cabbage in slaw is hard and chewy. I want it to be like a little bit wilted and still crisp. Add in the smallest amount of mayo, literally like a few squeezes. This isn't a mayo-based sauce. That's just there to add a little bit of that like little hint of creaminess. And then season this with sesame oil as well. It's mostly there for fragrance, but it also kind of matches the vibes of the miso barbecue sauce. If I can get Megan K to eat slaw, you know it's good. Our chicken has absorbed all the smoky flavor it needs, so it's time to get cooking. Remove your chicken from the brine and place it on a wire rack over a sheet tray. Dry the excess brine from the outside of the meat so the browning can start quicker. I like to pour a little bit of water in the tray itself just to keep any of the fat that drips down from burning. Place your oven on low broil, or just broil if yours only has one option. Place your tray on a rack close to the heating element. We're gonna cook this in intervals of maybe like 1 to 2 minutes so that both sides will get nice and brown. Depending on the heat of your element, you're gonna wanna go for 1 to 3 minutes and then flip. It's a little bit of effort, but you'd probably be doing the same amount of work sitting at a grill outside. Once you see that the chicken is cooked, roughly 15 minutes of cook time, we can start glazing on the barbecue sauce. Use a brush to ensure even coating on both sides, and then place this back under the broiler to tack onto the meat. The sugar in the barbecue sauce is gonna get a little caramelized, but don't let this burn. Continue glazing until it's sauced to your preference. The nice thing about chicken thighs is they're not really gonna overcook during this time, so you really can glaze this as much as you'd like. Once it's sauced to your preference, we can get ready to chow down. Grab yourself a plate. It almost just like feels appropriate to use a paper plate for this. Lay down some of your slaw, add on your chicken, and then top it with some of the corn relish. This whole thing ends up tasting like an upgraded summer cookout. It's fragrant, it's smoky, it's really umami forward. It is crazy delicious, and it feels right to just sit outside and eat it with a cool beverage and enjoy the summer sun. Massive shout out to the amazing people supporting me directly on Patreon through patreon.com/CameronMarty. They get some cool benefits for supporting the channel, and I get to keep making videos like this. The support means the world to me. If you don't want to sign up for the Patreon, consider becoming a subscriber. That support means a lot to me as well. If you're in need of another summer recipe, this al pastor marinade video is going to help you a ton. There's a lot of good tips and techniques in here and ways to use al pastor that's not just for pork. Thank you so much for watching. Cheers.